A Gilded Age socialite invented the dishwasher, because her fine china kept getting chipped at dinner parties. Josephine Cochrane turned frustration into a patented machine in 1886, sketching gears and testing prototypes in her own workshop. Stay with me to see how she pitched that invention at the World's Fair, won orders from hotels, and built a business that changed kitchens and domestic work forever. In the next few minutes you'll get the surprising twists of patent fights, gender expectations, and a legacy that made an ordinary convenience into a milestone of industrial and social history. Early life and social circle. Josephine Garris was born in Ashtabula County, Ohio, and grew up with the practical instincts that later marked her life. She carried with her the sober Midwestern sensibility of thrift and care for household order, traits that would later sit oddly alongside the luxury of white-glove dinners and elaborate place settings. Her maiden name remained part of her identity even after marriage, and that continuity mattered to her social presentation. Small-town roots did not prevent her from moving comfortably into affluent circles when circumstances allowed. She married William Cochrane and, through that union, entered a world where entertaining was both a social obligation and a display of status. The couple established themselves among the genteel society of the Midwest, where carefully curated dinner parties and well-appointed parlors were the currency of reputation. Guests expected fine china and silver, and hosts were judged by the quality of their tableware and the smooth execution of service. Conversation at these gatherings often revolved around household management, fashions, and the latest domestic conveniences. Her social circle included wealthy families and civic leaders who prized etiquette and presentation, and Josephine learned to navigate those expectations with skill. She was known to host guests who appreciated meticulous table settings, and she paid attention to the small details that made those evenings memorable. At the same time, she cultivated friendships with practical women who managed large households and with men who ran hotels and restaurants. These acquaintances provided a window into professional approaches to service and organization. Such connections broadened her perspective beyond private entertaining to the business of hospitality. A practical streak ran through her social life. She expected the household to preserve the appearance of refinement while functioning efficiently. When servants or the routine of service damaged valuable plates and cups, those incidents were discussed and lamented at the same tables where such items were displayed. She listened to what other hosts and proprietors did to protect their wares, and she compared notes with women who managed estates and with the managers of public dining rooms. Those exchanges, equal parts social ritual and problem-solving, helped shape her outlook and prepared her to propose solutions acceptable to the standards of her peers. Household challenges and the spark of invention. She had a clear, practical problem at hand. The fine china she loved to display and serve during large dinner parties was repeatedly chipped and broken by dishwashers and household help. As a wealthy hostess who entertained frequently, she watched expensive plates and delicate glassware suffer under hurried, careless washing. Pieces meant to signal status were becoming liabilities instead. Servants were overworked and dishwashing was often delegated to less skilled staff, so the risk to fragile pieces remained high regardless of household wealth. The mismatch between the ceremonial importance of dining ware and the brutal, inefficient way it was cleaned sparked a search for a better method. Frustration turned into methodical thinking. She observed that the forceful scraping and stacking were the primary causes of damage, so she asked whether force could be replaced by controlled motion and water pressure. Instead of scrubbing, she envisioned a machine that would hold each item securely and expose it to jets of water, thereby removing the need for abrasive handling. Working from that core idea, she devised wire compartments to keep plates separated and a mechanism that moved water through the loaded rack, allowing the dishes to be cleaned without contact that would chip or crack them. The result was a fundamentally different approach: mechanical washing that protected valuable tableware while reducing reliance on manual labor. Practical testing followed careful design. Early prototypes emphasized durability and gentleness at once. Copper and brass were used for components that needed to withstand heat and steam, and the rack system was calibrated to accommodate cups, plates, and serving pieces without overcrowding. She patented her design and sought buyers who faced the same scale problems she did. Hotels and restaurants, which handled vast quantities of dishes and could not afford breakage or slow turnover, were quick to adopt the new machine. An exhibition at a major fair brought attention and commercial orders, proving that an invention born from domestic annoyance could meet industrial needs. The broader implications were immediate and lasting. What began as a socialite's insistence on protecting her dinnerware nudged open a path toward mechanizing a tedious household chore and shifting labor patterns in kitchens. Over time, the same principles, securing items in racks, applying controlled streams of heated water, and automating cycles, moved from commercial settings into private homes as plumbing and electrification expanded. Her solution offers a clear example of how an intimate, practical challenge can lead to an invention that reshapes both daily life and commercial practice. Design principles and mechanical innovations. Josephine Cochrane built her machine around the simple but powerful observation that controlled water flow cleans more effectively than abrasive scrubbing, especially for delicate china. She insisted that dishes should not touch during washing, and designed compartments that kept every plate, cup, and saucer separate to prevent chips and scratches. This attention to preservation translated into open wire racks that supported items at the rim so the glazed surfaces never bore the force of handling. Practicality followed from that principle. If water can reach every surface and the items are immobilized, cleaning efficiency rises while breakage falls. Mechanically, she moved away from scrubbers and brushes and toward directed hydraulic action. Her apparatus used a rotating assembly of holders so that pressurized water could be delivered uniformly around each piece. The rotation meant jets or streams of water encountered every face of the ware in sequence rather than blasting one side repeatedly. The design favored recirculation of water and localized force application instead of brute force, reducing both waste and wear. For example, wire slots held plates vertically so a stream aimed tangentially could sweep across the entire surface as the rack turned, carrying away food particles without abrasives. The structural choices complemented the hydraulic idea. Open wire construction allowed unrestricted flow and fast draining, while simple, detachable baskets made loading and unloading straightforward for household staff. She emphasized minimal moving parts in contact with water, which lowered corrosion and maintenance issues. Bearings and pivots were placed out of the primary wash zone when possible. In practice, that meant the rotating mechanism could be sealed or isolated and the dish-holding sections removed for drying and inspection. The ease of disassembly was an innovation in user-centered engineering, anticipating modern kitchen appliance serviceability. Her mechanical innovations also established templates that survived into later machines, sectional racks, directed jets instead of brushes, and a rotating or circulating water path that maximizes coverage. Those core ideas, protect the item, expose every surface to a controlled flow, and keep mechanisms accessible for upkeep, remain visible in contemporary designs that use spray arms, targeted nozzles, and modular racks. Cochrane's approach combined an acute understanding of materials and domestic needs with straightforward mechanical engineering, producing a machine that was as much about stewardship of household goods as it was about cleaning. Prototyping and materials, from sketch to machine. Josephine Cochrane patented her dishwashing invention in 1886 after translating sketches into working machines that addressed a clear problem: how to clean delicate china without chipping or cracking. She began with detailed drawings that mapped the motion she wanted, rotating racks exposed to a directed spray, then moved quickly from paper to physical mock-ups. Early sketches emphasized spacing, support and the route of water. Those three concerns dominated every prototype iteration. Her first prototypes used readily available materials and simple shop techniques. Wood provided the initial structural frames because it was easy to cut and modify. Wire was chosen for racks almost immediately. Thin metal rods cradled plates securely while leaving most surfaces exposed to water and soap. Metal gears and a hand-turned wheel supplied rotational motion in place of a bulky engine, and pumps familiar to steam and boiler shops were adapted to force water through nozzles. Brass fittings and bronze bushings were common in joints and valves for their machinability and relative corrosion resistance. Small, practical choices like those made the leap from a brittle sketch to a functioning mechanism. Testing cycles were rigorous and pragmatic. A prototype would run multiple loads to see where chipping occurred and where water spray failed to reach. When dishes bumped or twisted against wire, spacing was increased or the wires reformed into gentle curves. When soap accumulated in corners, joints were reworked with better drainage and smoother welds. The spray pattern itself evolved. Fixed nozzles gave way to rotating spray arms in some trials, and pump pressure was tuned to balance cleaning force against the risk of breakage. She worked alongside local machinists and coppersmiths, using brazing and soldering to create watertight seams and adding reinforced bearings where rotational wear appeared first. Practical material trade-offs guided later revisions. Wood frames were replaced by cast or stamped metal for dimensional stability and to withstand repeated exposure to hot, soapy water. Wire rack material moved toward heavier gauge steel and eventually to plated finishes to resist rust. Seals and gaskets moved from improvised leather and rope packing to purpose-made rubber where available, reducing leaks and contamination. Manufacturing considerations also shaped the design. Parts had to be simple to stamp or machine, assembly had to be repeatable, and serviceability mattered. Removable racks and accessible pumps made maintenance feasible for hotels and restaurants, the earliest commercial customers. Lessons from prototype testing persisted into the commercial machines that followed. Shock-absorbing wire bends, organized compartmentalization, and direct spray paths became standard. Components that had failed in early trials, fragile wooden braces, poorly sealed joints, and low-grade fasteners, were eliminated or redesigned. As production scaled, the emphasis shifted to materials that combined durability with cost efficiency: stamped steel, plated racks, brass fittings for longevity, and electric motors replacing hand cranks as power sources became practical. Each material decision traced back to a specific problem observed during the sketch-to-machine journey, and every prototype taught a lesson about balance: enough force to clean, but not so much as to damage, enough rigidity to hold shape, but enough give to protect fragile wear. Patent battle and business strategy. She secured a patent for her mechanical dishwashing device in 1886, a legal recognition that defined the machine's essential mechanism: water pressure forced through a rack that held dishes in place so delicate china would not be chipped by hand washing. This grant gave her the exclusive right to make, sell, and license that specific approach, and she used the language of the patent in sales materials to highlight novelty and protection against imitation. The patent described a cradle-and sprayer arrangement rather than a simple scrubber, which made the machine attractive to owners of fine dinnerware who feared breakage under ordinary washing methods. Facing slow household adoption, she deliberately focused on institutional buyers. Hotels and restaurants had far higher dish volumes and felt the economic benefit of labor savings immediately. She took machines to trade expositions and culinary demonstrations, the most notable being a major fair where commercial cooks and hotel managers could see the machine operate under load. That live proof of concept was crucial because it showed not only the patented mechanism at work but also its durability with large batches, converting skeptical buyers into recurring customers. She organized production around reliable workmanship rather than mass-market cheapness. Small-scale manufacturing partners assembled the cast iron tubs and the brass fittings and installed the patented spray mechanism. She made sure the machines were built to last. After-sales service and training for kitchen staff were part of the sales pitch, and that practical support reduced buyer resistance. By positioning the machine as an industrial strength, patent-protected investment rather than a domestic luxury, she carved out a steady niche and created repeat business from institutions that prized reliability and time savings. Protecting the invention in a growing market required more than a secured certificate. Enforcement of patent rights in that era was costly and uneven. She used the patent as both a legal shield and a marketing tool, making it clear to potential customers that they were buying a patented, tested device, and that deterrent helped preserve sales against lower-quality copycats. At the same time, she adapted the business model to real-world constraints, emphasizing commercial clients who could justify the purchase, offering demonstrations and maintenance, and leveraging public exhibitions to build a reputation. Those pragmatic choices, combined with the legal protection of the patent, allowed her design to survive early competition and to become established where the economics of labor and volume made the machine indispensable. Manufacturing, marketing, and early customers. During the late 19th century, Josephine Cochrane moved quickly from tinkering to production, taking her patentable design into a small-scale manufacturing reality in her hometown of Shelbyville, Illinois. She organized a workshop where metalworkers and machinists could translate the prototype, wire racks, a water reservoir, and a mechanical action that used pressurized water rather than scrubbing, into repeatable units. Production was pragmatic and hands-on. Parts were often formed and assembled by local craftsmen, welders, and plumbers, and each machine was built to withstand the heavy use expected in commercial kitchens. Because the earliest users needed durability over aesthetics, materials and assembly practices prioritized strength, reliability, and easy repairability. Her marketing approach deliberately targeted professional food service operators rather than the typical household consumer. She demonstrated the machine's core selling points: time savings, reduced breakage compared with hand washing, and improved sanitation, directly to hotel and restaurant managers, using live demonstrations to prove the claim. A pivotal moment in that strategy was showcasing the dishwasher at major public exhibitions where large kitchens and catering operations were present. These demonstrations created visible, compelling proof that appealed to managers responsible for efficiency and labor costs. Promotional language and demonstrations emphasized not busy kitchen gossip but measurable labor reduction and fewer broken dishes, which resonated with commercial buyers balancing staff wages and turnover. Early customers were overwhelmingly institutional and commercial: large hotels, banquet halls, and restaurants that faced high volumes of tableware each day. These buyers needed machines that could run multiple cycles with consistent results and were willing to pay for equipment that reduced the number of hired dishwashers or the hours required from existing staff. Several of the first installations went into hotel kitchens and exposition dining facilities, where the dishwasher's ability to keep pace with service was put to practical and public tests. Word of mouth within the hospitality industry, managers visiting competing properties and tasting the efficiencies, helped convert skeptical buyers into customers more quickly than print advertising alone could. To support those early commercial sales, she and her team offered practical after-sale services that mattered for busy kitchens: installation tailored to existing plumbing and space constraints, guidance on operation, and access to repairs from the same local craftsmen who built the machines. This service-oriented approach reduced the perceived risk for buyers adopting a new technology in a high-stakes environment. Over time, those relationships with hotels and restaurants created reference points that slowly shifted perceptions, laying groundwork for broader adoption as manufacturers and infrastructure evolved to make home installation more feasible. Reception, criticism, and cultural impact. Cochrane's machine was met with curiosity and cautious enthusiasm when it first left her workshop. She patented the mechanism and organized production through her own company, then turned to commercial buyers because hotels and restaurants could immediately see the value: less breakage, faster turnaround, and more sanitary dish handling. Exhibitions of the device won attention at major fairs and trade shows where innkeepers and caterers inspected the copper-lined tubs and hand-powered gearing. Adoption in commercial settings grew faster than in private homes, in part because wealthier households still relied on domestic servants to wash dishes by hand. Critical responses were varied and often revealing about broader social tensions. Some competitors and traditionalists dismissed the dishwasher as an extravagant novelty, costly and unnecessary for a home with hired help. Labor advocates raised concerns about mechanization displacing domestic workers whose livelihoods depended on table service. Others praised the machine's engineering while pointing out practical limitations. Early units required robust plumbing arrangements and were best suited to institutions rather than modest households. Over time, historians and social critics have also argued that appliances like Cochrane's played an ambiguous role in women's lives, promising convenience while subtly reinforcing expectations that women oversee household labor. The cultural impact of her invention extended beyond kitchens and back-of-house sculleries. Commercial dishwashing changed standards of cleanliness and efficiency in the hospitality industry, allowing restaurants to scale service and meet growing urban demand. Museums and archives have preserved examples of her original machines, placing them in narratives about women inventors and American industrial ingenuity. Her story is frequently highlighted in exhibits on technology and gender, where curators use the dishwasher as a lens to discuss how household inventions redistribute labor, alter domestic hierarchies, and become symbols of modernity. Today, her legacy is both literal and symbolic. The ubiquitous household dishwasher stands as a testament to an innovation that began as a response to fragile china and frustrated homemakers and grew into an appliance that reshaped domestic routines worldwide. At the same time, scholars, educators, and popular media invoke her life to discuss the complex consequences of labor-saving devices, how they can free time, shift employment patterns, and simultaneously create new standards for domestic productivity. Concrete examples: trade fair awards, preserved machines in national collections, and continued scholarly debate, keep the conversation about reception, criticism, and cultural impact alive. Legacy: modern dishwashers and women's inventorship. Her original machine relied on a system of wire racks and pressurized water streams to clean delicate china without hand scrubbing, and that practical principle, mechanical agitation plus directed water flow, remains at the core of every modern dishwasher. Patented and built for manufacture, the idea of using water pressure instead of brute force protected fragile goods and enabled a consistent, repeatable wash cycle that factories and households could adopt. The Smithsonian National Museum of American History houses her earliest machine, a tangible example that links a single inventor's workshop solution to appliances now found in millions of kitchens worldwide. Modern dishwashers have layered many engineering advances on top of that original concept: efficient pumps and motorized spray arms, multi-stage filtration systems, built-in heating elements to sanitize and dry, and electronic soil sensors that adjust cycle time and water use according to load. Manufacturers such as Bosch and Whirlpool emphasize quiet operation and reliability, while brands like Fisher and Paykel introduced alternative form factors such as drawer dishwashers to fit diverse kitchens. Smart features have arrived too, with Wi-Fi connectivity for remote monitoring, cycle notifications, and integration into home automation platforms. Energy Star certification and manufacturer-led eco-cycles reflect a focus on reducing water and energy consumption without sacrificing cleaning performance. The broader story for women's inventorship is not only symbolic but practical. Cochrane's success demonstrated that insights from domestic life can drive commercially successful technological innovation. Her path, from identifying a household problem to designing, patenting, and manufacturing a machine, serves as a repeatable model for many women inventors and entrepreneurs today who turn lived experience into products. Organizations such as the Society of Women Engineers and a range of accelerators and nonprofits now provide mentoring, networking, and funding channels that were largely absent for women in the past, helping bridge technical skill, business know-how, and access to markets for hardware and appliance innovations. Contemporary appliance design teams routinely include women engineers, product managers, and industrial designers who advance not just usability but sustainability and inclusivity. Examples of those advances include adjustable racks and third-tier utensil trays for flexible loading, specialized cycles for baby bottles or delicate glassware, and materials selected for durability and recyclability. In the commercial arena, industrial dishwashing systems built for restaurants and institutions have borrowed concepts from the domestic lineage while scaling flow rates and robustness. Conversely, innovations in materials and filtration from industry have filtered back into consumer models. The arc from that first hand-built machine to today's connected, efficient dishwashers underscores a practical legacy. Inventions born from everyday problems can reshape industries, and when women lead or participate fully in the inventive process, the resulting technologies are more diverse, usable, and widely beneficial. From a frustrated dinner party host to a pioneering inventor, Josephine Cochrane took her love of fine china and turned it into the first practical mechanical dishwasher, patenting her design in 1886, building machines in her own factory, and showing the world at the Chicago Fair how everyday work could be transformed. Her invention didn't just save plates, it reshaped domestic labor, sparked commercial adoption in hotels and restaurants, and laid the groundwork for the modern kitchen convenience millions rely on today. If you've ever loaded a dishwasher after a meal, you're living with a little piece of her legacy. If this story inspired you, like, subscribe, and share. Tell us in the comments what household invention you'd want to see next. We've got more episodes coming that dig into overlooked inventors and the clever ideas that quietly changed our lives, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.